Right, so this ought to be a massive scandal, but again has largely been played down in the UK media because who cares about benefit claimants, right? They're there to be sneered at, looked down upon, accused of being feckless lead swingers who are feigning long-term illness or disability, aren't they? That's certainly been the crack for the last 14 years of Tory rule, where it was a situation sold to the rest of the populace as shirkers versus workers. And now we have another situation under Starmer's Labour government where it is now being referred to as hurt first, fix later. Because who cares if people in the meantime suffer before their mistakes get corrected? Especially since, or unless people are talking about said mistakes, they aren't likely to get fixed at all. The situation here involves the growing use of artificial intelligence in government department decision making. Specifically the AI use by the DWP because, shock horror, colour me surprised, the AI algorithm has inbuilt biases against certain demographics apparently, because no safeguarding or fairness analysis was undertaken before rolling this AI system out, and now the government have been caught with their pants down over it. Right, so this is a massive story, or actually it should be a massive story, a huge government scandal as it is, because once again they've been caught targeting those with the least, those who need their income supplemented, be they in work or not. Funnily enough, guess which have turned out to be the most at mercy of a computer program with an inbuilt bias over decisions affecting them? Well, before we get into that, let's go back to August, because that is when this problem first got flagged by the Public Law Project, following the publication of the Department for Work and Pensions annual reports and accounts for 2023-24. Obviously very interesting, gripping stuff to read, but obviously most of that time was also under the Tories administration. But the report was published on the 22nd of July, so had been signed off for publication by the new Labour government, who had been by that point in power by about a fortnight. But here is some of what the Public Law Project had to say about this back in August, about a month after the publication of those reports. DWP's annual report and accounts for 2023-24, published on the 22nd of July 2024, has provided more insight into DWP's desire to increase reliance on AI and automation, including for detecting fraud and error in social security claims and payments. The report speaks a lot in general terms about the DWP's use of data analytics and machine learning, including, in equally general terms, of the safeguards in place. However, the report provides no meaningful information about what technologies DWP is piloting or actually using, nor how they are or will be deployed. It similarly provides very little information about DWP's own assessment of the potentially discriminatory impact that the technologies might have on protected groups or vulnerable claimants. This weak compliance with the Public Accounts Committee's recommendation to report to Parliament on an annual basis on the impact of data analytics on protected grounds and vulnerable claimants is very disappointing, especially since there is also scant detail on the safeguards that DWP is purportedly adopting to mitigate harm, and the DWP has provided no real detail to allow meaningful scrutiny of the impact of the tools it is adopting. There is a real risk that, as identified by the National Audit Office, technologies of this nature may lead to discriminatory outcomes by unfairly targeting particular claimants, including because of their protected characteristics. Although the DWP's report does refer to a fairness analysis it has carried out in relation to the universal credit advances model, the results have not been published. The report simply states that the results do not present any immediate concerns of discrimination, unfair treatment, or detrimental impact on customers. So the DWP wants to use AI a lot more, but provided very little detail on that, especially when it came to safeguarding and making sure the system is fair. It makes mention of a fairness analysis, but it doesn't publish any details of it. And now it's being revealed that this system is anything but fair. In fact, it's being accused of being downright discriminatory, which would be yet one more thing to not change under Starmer's Labour from the Tories who came before them, isn't it? A Freedom of Information request by the Public Law Project for access to internal DWP documents relating to the AI being used has demonstrated inbuilt bias based on race, age, disability, and marital status. And your knee-jerk reaction to that is we're talking single people from abroad and those with disabilities being found against unfairly by a computer program designed to single them out in whole or in part. That is conjecture. We can only guess at that because those exact details were redacted in the FOI request. Nothing quite says nothing to see here, Gov, like hiding certain information, is there? But the excuse for that is if it were revealed, those who would choose to would know how to game the system. It's not other people gaming the system that should concern us, the public, here most of all. It is those in government gaming the system against certain people from certain demographics, because the only conclusion that can be drawn from doing that is that where the benefit bill is to be reduced, and this may, in part at least, be how the government are choosing to do that, by again seeking to throw people off the support they should be entitled to, hiding behind a computer program to do it, all by not doing the proper checks that should have been done. And when the program, which in itself cannot lie, is therefore programmed to have inbuilt biases, that cannot then be called an accident. That's deliberate. The excuse to use this system is to crack down on some £8 billion worth of benefit fraud each year. But if you are deliberately profiling people based on race, then it is a racist policy. On disability, then it is ableist, as well as also being ageist, and presumably has an issue with people who happen to be unmarried. The DWP claims that human checks would mitigate any such mistakes. But how about you just dump the AI until it's fixed and actually impartial and tested properly? And then you wouldn't need that cover. Besides, trust in the DWP is rock bottom. Under the Tories, there were pay incentives for getting people off claims. And if there are still similar schemes in place now, then people providing an extra set of checks for the AI, well, they're getting incentivised to look away, or potentially could be. And it all ends up looking, to all intents and purposes, like that culture is going to continue under Starmer's Labour. These are protected characteristics here. I can't wait to see a day in court over this. And absolutely that should be the case given the attitude, which has been described as hurt first, fix later. That is barbaric. The Public Law Project have accused Starmer's government of failing to assess whether their automated processes risked unfairly targeting marginalised groups, and that they should stop rolling out tools when they don't realise the damage they can cause to people's lives. That should be common sense, shouldn't it? I'd raise them somewhat there, though, to say what is obvious when we have in reality just swapped one bunch of Tories for another, that they simply don't care about that. They've redacted comparisons between those groups the algorithm targets, such as the disabled, and compared that to non-disabled people. But the findings have not been published, hiding the information we absolutely need to know. You know, Labour have only been in power for 5 minutes, really, and already AI has been rolled out with a chronic lack of transparency, a lack of rigorous testing, because there hasn't been time for it. Continues to shift the burden of proving mistakes onto claimants or those affected who may not be able to provide such information, and which is also chronically unfair when they aren't to blame for the wrong decisions of a government computer program. And certainly they don't have the same resources to do that as the DWP obviously does. And the fairness analyses, according to the Public Law Project, these are completely absent when it comes to factors such as race, sex, religion, sexual orientation, and gender assignment. And that lack of basic due diligence is how artificial intelligence systems end up with inbuilt biases. But what an appalling set of demographics to be biased against as well. It's just a total rush job bereft of testing and checking, determined to get it rolled out and delivering on Labour promises to cut the welfare bill, but regardless of the harm it may cause to individuals in the meantime. It is callous, it is cruel, and all in the name of meeting their own self-imposed targets. But this is a scandal that could be even bigger yet. Many times bigger, in fact. Because if you thought AI being rolled out in the Department for Work and Pensions is the only case of AI being used in government right now, you could not be more wrong. Independent reports suggest that across all public authorities in the UK, so not necessarily just central government, but obviously the governmental hierarchy would oversee more localised uses of AI as well, there are some 55 separate artificial intelligence systems in use today being used by public authorities. These are being used to oversee decisions on housing, welfare, policing, healthcare and more. But the real scandal here? The government's official register of AI systems only makes mention of 9. So lack of accountability when it comes to the use of AI at local or national government level is off the scale. And massive questions need asking of this. What is there to hide? What are you hiding? What are you not aware of? What is going on behind the scenes that you're not telling us about? What are you not being held accountable in relation to? And all especially since public bodies are still awarding contracts for more AI systems with minimal oversight and no way of vetting the AI first to ensure it works exactly as it needs to. Just last month, a £20 million contract for a facial recognition system was awarded by a police procurement body. It has also come to light that no Whitehall department, that means not one of them, has registered any of the AI programs it is using, despite an apparent mandate that this be done. So who exactly is in charge here? Who's dropped the ball? It's Peter Kyle, the Minister for Science and Technology, you would think. Perhaps he needs to pull his finger out a bit. As for the DWP, the dreadful Blairite Liz Kendall wants hauling over the coals as well, as Labour seems set on damaging lives amongst those on the lowest earnings, those who get discriminated against already and have been for years, based on race or disability. No change for those who needed it most, with a change of government, and no surprise to those of us who knew Starmer represented nothing of the sort anyway. He has, of course, just the other week referred to that welfare bill as a blight on society, therefore the implication being anyone actually claiming any of it being a blight on society. Instead of dealing with the root cause of that high bill, which includes in no small part wages that are far too low to live on so that they end up having to be subsidised, so Starmer attacks the low paid and not the low paying. He does seem to love to be hated, doesn't he? He's so good at giving peoples to do so, isn't he? Get all the details of his shocking admission and what triggered it in this video recommendation here as your suggested next watch. And please do support the channel with a like, share and a subscribe if you haven't already. That is very much appreciated. And I will hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.